Welcome, everyone, to the How to Podcast series. My guest co-host today, Cody Crabb, is here. We're going to be talking about all things podcasting and helping you get your show up on the air and get you behind the mic and feel comfortable. Cody does this. He helps many podcasters, got some great shows under his belt. He helps a lot of great people. Cody, welcome to the How to Podcast series. Nice to have you here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, happy to be here.
It's exciting. So I'm on your website. I have it up as we're chatting. It's great. Lots of color. There's you tied up in wires and enjoying the podcasting journey. Where did all this start for you, Cody, as far as becoming into the podcast space?
Well, honestly, it kind of happened by accident, as so many people kind of say, their career just kind of happened to them. Went to school for music production. So I wanted to be a film composer. I had it all planned out. I was like, yeah. And the more I learned about the film industry and kind of especially composition and stuff, it's just insanely competitive. There's only one composer per film. So like it's super, super competitive. You're competing with these huge names and it's like deadlines are crazy and and you have to live in LA. There's no way around it. And I'm just like, that's not really what I want to do. But I've already learned all this music production stuff. And so here and there, I would write some music for people for something here and there. And eventually a couple people asked me to do some podcasts. One in particular was like a travel podcast. He wanted me to write like full scores for his whole show. And then I was kind of like, and I wasn't really into podcasts at this point. But this guy it was really interesting. And I kind of was like, hey, so I knew how to use the audio software and stuff. So this guy's like, hey, do you want to help me edit a little bit too? And so, okay, I started editing a little bit, and then little by little, it grew my clientele, and it was this little side hustle for a while. And maybe 5 years later, I found myself getting fired from my corporate customer service gig. And I was like, well, I guess we're doing this. And so I've been full-time ever since. It's about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But I've been really, really lucky. Additionally, I've been also getting to more kind of training and things like that. So I went to Oslo to teach not music production, but podcast production at one of the big media companies there called Schibsted. If you're from Europe, you have heard of it. It's huge. And so I've had some crazy opportunities. I'm working on a podcast right now that just wrapped up, but it's nominated for a Webby. So I'm just sitting over here like alongside Netflix, and I'm like, what? Like they're in our category. So it's been a wild ride. And like I said, I just kind of did it by accident. Like I just ended up here. So cool. All right. But it's been great. I've learned a ton along the road, and it's changed a lot, even in just the time that I've been doing it, which is like 5 or 6 years, really. So I empathize with anyone that's trying to do this, because the landscape is just ever changing always. It's crazy.
I don't think you got fired. I think you got promoted.
That's an understatement.
Right.
Before I was taking customer service calls for this kind of weird, sketchy. It wasn't sketchy, but it was like kind of iffy business model for like real estate house sharing. And it was like a startup. And when I got fired, and then like 2 months later, they moved all the customer service to like El Salvador or something. So like the timing of everything is it's been amazing. I've been very lucky in everything that I've done, because it's like that saying, opportunity is luck is where preparedness meets opportunity.
Right.
And so I had all this business built up. I had like a process, and I had my pricing set up, and I had all my services ready. And then I got fired, and I was like, I know exactly what to do. Like, let's just build this more, like do more.
It. So yeah. Tell me about some of the podcasts that you work on that are coming through you. What kind of services are you offering?
Yeah, well, so pretty much anything adjacent to podcasting, obviously editing and kind of audio production and stuff. But also lately I've been doing a lot of kind of consulting. Like people come to me with a business and they're like, I want to start a podcast, but like how? Like not just how, but like, what do I even talk about? Am I just going to be repetitive and just talk about the same stuff every week? How do I like structure this so it's interesting? Like, so I'm not just talking for an hour. So I kind of meet with business owners, and I kind of go, what's your message? What's your mission statement? How can we kind of bring that through in each episode while still kind of injecting some freshness and some new new feeling to it. So it's not just stale content. And kind of maybe keep it evergreen too, so that people can find all of your old episodes and listen to all of them. So it's not just like time. I mean, like if it's a news podcast, that doesn't work, but
Yeah.
other stuff where it's not really time specific. And then the other services I offer are kind of general, well, and video too. I'm a video editor and producer as well. But just kind of the promotion that goes along with that. So I'll create thumbnails and graphics, and I'll make promo videos and audiograms, and I'll make just about really, I'll write the show notes. I mean, just about anything that you
Yeah.
need for a podcast. I'm like the guy. So really the only thing I can't do is talk for you. I can outline everything.
Yeah.
I can, but, and frankly, with AI coming, we're this close where I
I
can
know,
talk for you.
right?
So basically that's kind of the way I do my business, is that I'm just your podcast assistant. If you need assistance of any kind doing a podcast from beginning to end, that's me. I'm
Beautiful.
the guy.
So I
Yeah.
noticed on your website, there's mention too about YouTube.
Oh yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing for podcasters now on YouTube with the new podcast tab? What's catching your interest there?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know why. I don't get this. Personally, I do this for a living and I don't understand this, but people like watching podcasts, like video version. I don't get it.
Talking heads, right? Yeah.
I don't understand it. Like it's very strange to me. My wife is the same way. Everyone I talk to, like in person, they're all like, "Oh yeah, I always have the video going." And I'm like, "Really? Why?" Like I just don't get it. But it's a thing. It's a thing. And so now that you're able to do it on like Spotify, like you have video in Spotify and things
Right.
like that,
I know.
it kind of seems to me like, why not? You know? So actually I've kind of built in a new version of edit, like I don't just do audio and video. I kind of have this middle ground that I've started to have with people where I call it video podcasts. And it's basically this, like a kind of a Zoom call or something. And I kind of just spruce it up. I make the
Yeah.
pictures bigger, and I have a nice background, and I add logos and outros and intros and stuff, that it's so that it still like looks really nice and maybe is a little more spruced up than just throwing up a Zoom call.
Yeah.
But it's, so I've had a really big call for it. Probably 2/3 of my clients now have some kind of video component. If not the whole podcast, then like a section, like a 5 to 10 minute section. So I would say that's the norm, is having some kind of video component, but it's kind of just what you have to do now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a thing,
Yeah. And just the idea that YouTube is actually going into podcasting and having that little tab,
Yeah.
converting a playlist into a podcast.
That's so cool. Yeah.
With all the juice that goes behind YouTube and all the searchability there, and the monetization that's there.
Well,
Anybody,
something
right?
interesting here
Yeah.
is that people go, "Oh, I don't want my podcast on YouTube." Well, guess what? YouTube is the second largest search engine after Google. So like you need to be on YouTube, even if it's just the crappy version with your album art.
Yeah.
And you just throw it up there. You got to be on there. It's the only, it's just another place you got to be. Services like Acast will do it for you. There's certain services that you can just link to YouTube, but you got to do it. I recommend at least clipping a piece, not like so there's 3 ways I would do it. So you can either do the whole podcast, like I just mentioned, like a video podcast if you record remotely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it takes a little more work to do video. You got to kind of get set up nice, and you got to put pants on, I mean, you don't really, I could not be wearing pants. You wouldn't know. So you gotta at least try a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is like you can do the whole podcast. You can do a section, which is this is something that I've had some clients do recently, where they pick, like, they ask the guest a question or something, and they take that question all the way through to the next question, like when they change topics, and they clip that as like a new section. So that's been popular. And that's a way to kind of get some engagement, and it's a way to not have a 50-minute YouTube video on your channel. You can have like a little shorter one. And then a really, this one is like, no matter what you're doing, you should be doing this. So like, even if you just record through Zoom or something, like we're recording through Zoom right now. If you did this, so what you do is you go on YouTube Shorts, okay? Pick a 60-second quote and go stack the 2 or 3 or 4, however many windows, just stack them vertically. So it's like on your phone vertically. Make it a 60-second video. Shorts are blowing up right now.
Yes. Yeah.
I had a random dumb video that I shared on my YouTube channel with no following, mind you.
Mhm.
No, like I have like no following at all. And this was just like to have it there so I could share it with people. And it got 12,000 views. And I did no promotion. I sent it to my friends as like a thing, but it wasn't like I was trying to promote it. I just
Yeah.
like, it just was out there and the algorithm just fed it to people.
Right.
So you need to be doing that. And it's a really great way to get new listeners because it's just, they're just promoting the heck out of them right now.
Yeah.
So minimum, I would say you got to be doing at least some kind of YouTube short related to the episode. But I would also recommend just, it's not really that much more work to do a little video podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe doing like a full on like in studio multicam setup. Like that's great if you can do it, but you don't really have to do it. It's kind of ever since COVID, we're all like, yeah, we get it. Like sometimes people record online, so
Yeah.
it's not a big deal anymore.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. Yeah. So being on YouTube, great for searchability.
Big
For
time.
me, I actually put up the static image post with the audio attached because I'm up against my limit for my podcast host, where
Oh,
I
there
have
you
more
go.
episodes than I can upload. So instead of telling my guests they have to wait 3 months for their episode to hit the audio apps, I throw it up on YouTube and I treat YouTube as a Google storage drive.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Right. So it's free storage for me. I can always pull my MP3 back down if I need to.
Yeah.
And I just leave it there and there's no limits. So
Yeah.
my guests can have their interview 2 days after we meet. And then I replace everything later with the other
Smart.
assets down the road. So it's free storage and people can listen.
Well, and there's another thing too, which is I think a lot of podcasts should think of this backwards. So you should start a channel for your podcast and have your podcast as a playlist and then add some additional podcast content behind the scenes.
Yes.
You can add like additional content in your niche. Like if you talk about weight loss, you can maybe like do a review of some weight loss thing that you tried, or you know what I mean? Like there's ways to kind of expand on the podcast without being like a YouTuber. Like you should think of this as a way to like add video to your podcast. Yeah, it's just a platform to do that,
Yeah, and give them some behind the scenes, give them some off stuff where they can just get to know you as the host outside of the podcast.
We've all got a camera in our pockets that is better than anything that our ancestors ever owned or could dream of. Like just use it to create something that's unedited. That's you just talking about your day or something about recording the podcast or something funny that happened off camera. Like people love that stuff. People like to connect with the hosts and stuff like that. I mean, think about what you like when you see that, when you see it, and just kind of imitate that. There's no wrong answer. Like I always tell people, like steal everything. If you see a good idea, do it. Like don't be like, well, I don't want to copy. Do exactly what other people do. It's proven that that's how you succeed on the internet, is you find a formula that's working and you do it.
There's one wheel and there's many iterations of it, but there's one wheel. There was one idea and now look, right?
You could start the same podcast as somebody else and it will come out different because you're a different person, you have different tastes, you have different thoughts.
Yes.
So you know what I mean? Like you don't have to worry that it's going to be too similar, because unless you're like trying to copy somebody, like imitate them, then but like it's going to be different enough. That's all you need to worry about, is that you're putting out something that you can contribute to the world with,
Right. Okay. So tell me, what AI thing really caught your eye? What are you dabbling with right now? I got hands rubbing. I love it.
So, as you know, I mentioned I do kind of show notes and I do just kind of everything in production. I've started using AI heavily in my workflow at this point. So there's a few things. I use ChatGPT. I'm a Plus member, but the really big deal about ChatGPT is not necessarily the write me show notes, right? It's a lot more intricate. If you really want to get specific, you can get outputs that are basically just, here's what I want, here's a summary of my episode, and it spits out perfect show notes. Like if you can get to that point with the right prompts and stuff. If you like provide examples of past notes and stuff like that. But the way that this is a real big game changer. So a lot of people offer transcripts, right? So one thing that I hear a lot is like, oh, transcripts are like so important and they're expensive because you have to, they're
Right.
pricey. But something that I've been doing, which I think this is a little hack if you want basically a free, like really good transcript. So think about it this way. If you have a transcript, so what would you say is the point of having a transcript? Like there's a few reasons, but like what are those reasons? Like why would a podcaster want a transcript for their podcast?
Well, I know people say that the more words, the better for search engine and optimization and
Yes,
everything.
SEO. Yeah,
Yeah. So, but
totally.
I think the
SEO.
one thing that people don't really think about is people who can't hear
Yeah,
or need that,
accessibility. I would
right?
agree with that.
Accessibility. That's really important to
Yeah.
me. Um, I don't know. I think it's because it's popular, to be quite honest. Really,
And
everyone's
maybe just
doing it.
because, yeah, everyone's doing it. So let me just point out there's literally no reason it needs to be a verbatim transcript, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't need to be like if I say, and that's what happened, and the transcript says, and then it occurred. Like I'm saying the same thing. It doesn't need to be perfect. So
Yeah.
here's what I've been doing for transcripts. So I paste in I write like you can get those AI transcripts that are kind of iffy, like whatever, they're kind of okay. Like Riverside, I believe, that has a
Yep.
free transcription. So upload it somewhere like that if you don't have a transcription service already. And then um copy like in pieces the transcript into something like ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
And get summaries of each section. Put all of that together, or not summaries of each section. Sorry, I was going off on a different tangent. So okay, take pieces and paste it in ChatGPT, and then tell it to correct the transcript. But it doesn't matter what it corrects it to because it won't be like accurate to the audio necessarily,
Yes.
but it
Yeah.
will be grammatically correct, and it will
Yes.
obviously a few words here and there. It'll get the gist of what you were saying, and you might still need to read it over to make sure like doesn't say like you
Yeah.
say Heil Hitler or something in the middle of it,
Weird. Yeah.
but like if you do that, you've got this working transcript that will be perfect. Like it won't be like identical to the audio, but there's lots of little AI hacks you can do like that really are a game changer for like making a podcast. Have you heard of Podium?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Podium is I chatted with them when I was at Podcast Movement, and they've got some really cool stuff. You can basically create a show. They'll do the transcription and stuff, and then you can just say, give me a good quote for an audiogram, and it'll just give it. And then you can literally type like a request, like give me a teaser I can put at the beginning of the episode that will hook people to listen, and it'll spit something out. It's
See.
wild what you can
See.
do with this stuff. So like people like me, I've heard from other podcast producers and stuff, they're terrified. They're like, we're going to be out of jobs. People are not going to want to hire people like this. The editing part is the only thing that's left. And I say, no, you're wrong.
Mm.
The people that are going to get replaced are people that are not using stuff like this.
Yes.
So what you need to do is if you make podcasts like I do,
Yeah.
hop on this ASAP, because that you're going to be the first one to get replaced. Because someone like me who's using it like crazy can work like 10 times faster than I used to be able
Right.
to with tools like Descript that are
Yeah.
also like AI. They also use AI to like help you find filler words and things like that. I mean, I'm actually, so I didn't mention this, but I'm a Descript ambassador with their company,
Yeah.
and they are down the road. They are planning on heavily investing in the whole AI thing. I don't know what that means. I don't know if
Mm.
that means you can do one-click editing. Like it could probably will get to that point, to be honest. So hop on these tools. It's not cheating. There's nothing wrong with doing it. And frankly, the more you use, the more time you can spend on just making good content and not making an audiogram with the perfect transcription. And do you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like
You're right. Yeah.
people spend too much time on stuff that isn't necessarily going to help grow their audience or help make their content better. Just maybe if you can automatically generate some stuff that's pretty good, and you can do 10 of those, that would be better than doing one very good thing,
Right. Yeah. Perfect. And that kind of a nice segue to your new podcast. Talk about that one,
Oh,
please.
that's true.
I like this.
So me and this guy Johnny Flores. So we've only ever met at Podcast Movement. I've been to 3 now, and I've met him, been there with him 3 times. And so he's from Sacramento. He does the same thing I do, but he's been doing it longer. He's kind of he's a little more kind of established in the field, and we chat a lot, like kind of trade best practices and chat. And we've often said, like, the classic line, like, we should start a podcast, right? Because we get questions a lot from people I'll post on social media about how I love being like self-employed, or I love being freelance, or my job is so cool, or something. I get to work on this Webby nominated true crime podcast. And my friends are like, bro, I hate my job. How do I do this? Like, it sounds amazing. And so, and he gets questions like that too. So we decided, like, hey, let's just share some of this knowledge. Like, we don't need to monetize it, or like, we're just right now at this stage, we're like, we just want to answer people's questions, because there's a lot of information out there, and it's all behind paywalls and
Yeah.
courses, and you got to sign up for stuff, and
Funnels
we don't
and
want any of that
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we literally started, like, what was the very first question we got? And it was like, how do you find clients? Okay. How do you find clients? And then the next episode, we were like, well, how do you deal with like rates? And like, we just are kind of going systematically and just like answering these questions. And then down the line, we're going to do stuff like, how do you figure how to raise your rates? How do you talk to clients about, I need you to pay me more?
Yeah.
How do you say no to somebody when you're desperate for work and they're not going to pay you very much, but they're going to pay you something? And
Yeah.
so there's all these questions we get, and finding clients, of course, that's a huge one. So if you're interested in making podcasts for a living, whether that's just as a side hustle or full-time, or starting your own production company down the line, Johnny and I have this podcast. We just started it. It literally is launching the day we're recording this. And it's
Beautiful.
yeah, perfect timing. It's called the Podcast Producer's Survival Handbook. And it's going to be on all the podcast places. But it's going to be twice a month. We're just going to chat about, like, what do you need to know if you want to do this as a career? Because there's so many little nuances, and you can't just do one thing. You can't just do audio. You got to you can eventually, but it's better if you have a little range of skills, and we can kind of give you some tips on what skills you should have and how you can get them. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to be listening to that podcast. I'll be sharing that with many people. I have other
Well,
people
thank you.
asking the same question. So well done. That's going to be one of my top podcasts, right? For sure.
Oh, thank you. Well, we just saw a need, and we're like, we don't want this to be like, we want this to be really accessible info, and we're just gonna, for someone that literally barely knows how to work audio, this is still gonna be really good information. And even if you're not, like, if you're really experienced, this is gonna be really good, like, if you're just in the industry. So
Okay. So one thing I'd like to do, Cody, is I want to use your link to Descript. Okay, I'm going to put that in the show notes so people can
oh,
click on
thanks.
it and go to you through your link. And that'll benefit you, which is great. But
Yeah.
talk to me in the audience that have no idea what Descript is, but
Oh
they're
man.
looking for an editing tool, so they don't have to be a super nerd to do editing on their podcast. They want something that works and makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay, can you
Well,
kind of give me a general idea of what it
sure.
is, so we can imagine it in our minds on our screen and the benefit?
Well, so Descript is one of the most revolutionary audio tools that I've probably seen since I've been in the industry. So imagine, if you've never heard of it, imagine that you are looking at a transcript of your audio. And if you delete a paragraph, it will delete it from the audio. And you can move things around and things like that, and it will just edit the audio for you, and you can export it just like that. That is Descript. It is a text-based audio editor, and it is so good. I use it every single day, even though I am like really knowledgeable about these audio apps, and I went to school for this. Like, I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing. I still find myself reaching for it because it's just so good for something like spoken long form content, because sometimes you just need to find the spot where somebody said X, or one of my clients says, hey, can you take out that story about halfway through where I talk about the fire hydrant? And I'm like, imagine if you just had to do that with audio. Like,
Yeah.
it's a nightmare. But imagine just Control F. Like imagine just finding it. You're just
Yeah.
there. Yeah. And so this true crime podcast that I made, we were able to transcribe like 60 hours of audio. And
Wow.
he could just say, I want to put that line where she talks about her daughter. And I can literally just and stick it right in there, copy paste. So this is a really, really good tool for beginners, especially if you're brand new to audio editing. Um, it's super easy to use. There's tons of tutorials. It's really nice. It's user friendly. But the main thing is that the main thing is that it is easy. But the another nice thing is that so you get 30 hours of audio for the pro version and 15 hours of audio per month for the regular version. And so 15 hours of audio. I mean, if you have your own podcast and that's what you're just doing your own podcast, that's plenty. I mean,
Yeah.
who's doing 15 hours of episodes a month? That's like more than anyone would do.
Yeah.
So there's no additional charges for over that for transcription. And then there's lots of little built-in tools that you get. There's one called Studio Sound that's amazing for noise reduction and things like that. And it's just one click and it's just a knob. So you just turn it up or down how much you want to. So if you are a beginner, you're wanting to like boost maybe you're using something free like GarageBand or something and you're kind of struggling, this is a really good start. My wife, I actually did this as a test. My wife has no audio experience, literally zero. She's not great with technology. Love you, Amanda, but you're not. And she's not a computer person. And so I was like, I want to teach her. I want to see if I can teach her to edit a podcast in Descript. And so how long will it take her to kind of get going? And I was expecting like a few sessions like down the road. After probably an hour and a half, she was editing to a degree where I was like shocked at how well she was doing. And now she like helps me edit sometimes
Wow.
because she really liked it and she enjoyed it. But it's just amazing how it's just a really simple concept. They match a transcript with your audio and then they take these edits and apply them to this. But it's just fantastic. So very, very highly recommended. And it has lots of little other features too that may or may not be useful to you. They've got a feature called Overdub, which is you can basically make an AI version of your voice. So yeah, and it's wild how good you can get it to sound. You can just train it on like hours of your talking and it's amazing. I mean, imagine something like, oh, I said the episode number wrong, and you can just type the new episode number. Like it's
Wow.
just so great. And then you can do stuff like screen recording and lots of little other stuff. But it's just fantastic. I highly recommend it. And yeah, get it. It's really good.
So we're going to use your link that it's on your website.
Yeah.
So when people click the link that we're providing from you, what happens? Like, is there something that the person
It's
gets
kind of a
or?
silly way that they do it. Like I
Okay.
don't really love the way they have it set up. You have to click the link,
Yeah.
and then while you're on that screen, you have to create an account.
Okay. So that's the
So
steps.
if
Okay.
you already have an account, it's too late. Love
Yeah.
you. You should
Yeah.
still get it, but like, so if you want to help me out, click the link, create an account while you're on that screen, and then you can try it out for free actually. I believe you get 10 free hours. Maybe
Okay.
3
Okay.
3 free hours. You get some free hours. And so use it, try it out, see if you like it for free. I guarantee you will. If you really don't like editing, this will be a treat for you.
Yeah.
And so you can edit with the text, you can edit with the audio bar just like you would in any other platform too. So really good for everybody. And if you can go to descript.cc. I actually bought that URL because it's my initials. And that's technically it directs you to my referral link. So
Okay. All right. So and that'll help you out as well, which I like doing. And thank you for
I
giving me
appreciate
your
that.
time. So okay. So before we go, Cody, some tips for a brand new podcaster who is just starting, that we're not really talking about the editing part, but just getting motivated to start their show. If somebody came to you and said, where do I start? What would you tell them?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is your voice is unique.
Yeah.
So what I hear from so many people just starting out is, do I even have a point? Like why am I doing this? And the thing I always remind people is nobody on this earth has exactly the same experiences that you do.
Right.
The same viewpoints, the same life, the same, thought process. You have something to bring to the table, and it's important that I love that this is the way we've ended up as a podcasting society, that you can just send out an RSS feed to the world and
Right.
anybody can do this. It's so accessible. With tools like Descript, you can even have a really professional sounding podcast with almost no money spent. Like, it's just amazing how much you can do. And I would just say it's important to share your voice. You have something to offer, because no matter how similar you think your podcast is to somebody else, it's not. You have value. You have value to add. So when I started a podcast a few years ago, and I found out that somebody we interviewed actually happened to start a very similar podcast on the other side, like without us knowing about it. And we found out while she was on our podcast. And I was shocked how similar they were. But I listened to a few of her episodes, and I was like, you know what? Like, content wise, they're similar, but like, we have different points. Like, we're coming at this from slightly different angles. And she's got some points that I'm like, I go a different direction with. So just remember, you've got value to add to the world and to your niche and to your business.
Right.
And don't be afraid to share it. And also, and just to tack on to that, make something bad. Like, don't be afraid to just put an episode out there with your iffy audio and you're stumbling and I don't really know how to edit, so it sounds a little choppy, and like, do it. Because the only way you're ever going to get good at something is by doing it over and over.
Right.
So make something bad, put it out in the world. Next time, listen to what you didn't like and try to fix it. Why did my audio sound like it was echoing? Oh, okay, let me fix that. Oh, I said way too many filler words. Let me try to not do that. And then 10 episodes down the road, you're going to look back and go, look how much better I've gotten. And then 100 and then 1,000. And then who knows what could happen. So, I mean, look what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing, and I just found myself in a career. So it's just proof that just try.
I love it. And the nice thing too is the audience gets to follow your journey and realize that it's not all smoke and mirrors, that you don't have to be perfect on episode 1.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if Cody can do it, if Dave can do it, I can do this, because I've seen their progression. They're getting better. Mm-hmm. So there's hope for me as a new podcaster.
And so if you do want to start a podcast and you've got a little bit of, like, maybe you've got some money to spend and you do want to make a really good impression right out of the gate, hire somebody. It doesn't need to be in a forever kind of capacity. This is something I do for clients all the time, actually, is I say, I'll get you started. I'll tell you all the best practices. I'll recommend some equipment. I'll show you how to record. I'll show you how to edit. And then once I will make you go free out of my nest and you will be fine. So even if you've just got a little bit of cash to invest, I recommend, even if it's not me, finding somebody that you can just say, look, can you do 10 episodes for me and show me how to do it by the 10th episode? So on episode 11, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. So yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So in that, Cody, where do we go to connect with you? I see a calendar thing right here on your website. They can book time with you.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
So if you want to talk shop, if you're a podcast producer or something like that, we'd love to hear from you on our podcast. So we have an email, podcastsurvival@gmail.com. We are the Podcast Producer Survival Handbook, just to remind you. So me and Johnny will answer your questions, or if you can suggest stuff for us to talk about. So reach out there if you have any questions. If you want to book time with me to get a consultation, to have me edit your podcast, awesome. I've got some space right now. So you can go to codycrabb.com. And it will, at the bottom, I've got a calendar. You can read about me, read about some of the stuff I've worked on, and all that's there. Also YouTube. I didn't even mention this, but I do a YouTube channel with some tutorials and podcast production tips and stuff like that. I'm Cody Crabb Edits on YouTube. So all of that stuff to say, go to codycrabb.com. It's all there. But yeah, it's I'm all over the place. You can't miss me.
I love it. And for the behind the scenes, for people listening, Cody's got a little one homesick today, and he's kind of doing one eye off to the side, watching to make sure nothing's going wrong.
You've probably heard a few little coughs here and there.
Well, he's doing well. Thank you for making time to be on the
Of
show,
course. Yeah.
Cody.
Happy to do it.
And I love the fire that you have for podcasting. And you've gone from being fired to being on fire
I
for
love that.
podcasting. There you
I'm going
go.
to steal that. That's really good.
Not entrepreneurs on fire. That's a different thing. But yeah, you got that going on. I love it. I love the passion you have for it. And I know we've inspired people today just in our conversation. So really appreciate you making time.
Yeah, of course. I'm so glad I was able to kind of share that. It's been great.
Great. So again, we'll put the links to the Descript. And make sure you go there through the link and then create your account. Make sure you do that. And that'll be in the show notes. And you can help support Cody as well by using his link. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks so much.